every major channel covering this episode is going to tell you the same three things. Tumbleton is occupied, a queen is pregnant, and a dragon might be dead. That's the surface. That's not the episode. The actual episode is about hypocrisy. One faction built an entire war on the idea that blood and legitimacy matter more than anything. And in this episode, that same faction is the one caught lying about blood, faking legitimacy, and forcing a child to prove loyalty with a sword. Nobody's saying that part out loud yet. That's actually the last line of the episode, and once you've seen everything we're about to walk through, you'll understand exactly how dark that line really is. Let's go through this properly. Every lie, why it happened, and what it costs later. Fast recap. King's Landing has fallen, Rhaenyra sits the Iron Throne, and Lord Aemond Hightower has just seized the market town of Tumbleton, using a fake hostage to buy himself the time to do it. That trap worked. This episode is what happens in the hours right after it closes. Let's start with the guy running this occupation, because the show wants you to hate him specifically, and it earns that in about 90 seconds of screen time. Aemond Hightower sets up his headquarters in the home of Lord and Lady Footley, and does it by sitting in their own bathtub, naked, while they beg him to remember they already bent the knee to the rightful queen. His answer isn't diplomacy. He stands up, fully exposes himself, and reminds them that the penalty for treason is death, tossing out a line about whether Rhaenyra is really a sovereign or just, in his words, a woman with a dragon. And standing quietly in that same household is the actual Prince Daeron Targaryen, not the decoy from last episode, the real one. And here's the detail that's about to blow up the entire moral foundation of Team Green. He doesn't have silver Targaryen hair. He's got dark auburn hair, just like his mother Alicent. Sit with that for 1 second, because this is the actual hypocrisy in the title of this video. The entire Green claim to the throne, from Season 1, was built on Alicent's accusation that Rhaenyra's sons weren't real Targaryens because they had dark hair instead of silver. That accusation started a war. And now Alicent's own son, born to a Targaryen king, has the same coloring she once used as a weapon against another woman's children. Now, I want to be straight with you here, because the show is genuinely leaving this open. There are two real explanations circulating, and neither one is confirmed on screen. 1. This is simply genetics. Daeron inherited his mother's Andal features, and the show is quietly exposing Alicent's old accusations as hollow. 2. Aemond has actually dyed the boy's hair brown, specifically to hide a second true prince, on top of the decoy he already burned last episode, in case Rhaenyra's people come looking again. Both are legitimate readings right now. I'll be honest with you if the show ever confirms one over the other. But this genetic twist answers a much bigger question that shatters the foundation of this entire war. How can Daeron, a boy with brown Andal hair, claim and ride a pure Targaryen dragon like Tessarion? It proves a fundamental law of George R.R. Martin's world. Physical traits do not dictate magical blood. By showing Daeron with brown hair riding a dragon, the show retroactively validates Rhaenyra's sons, Jace and Luke. It proves Alicent's lifelong weapon, that brown hair equals bastardy and unworthiness, was nothing but a hollow political lie. The Green's own son just proved that blood magic doesn't care about hair color. Back in King's Landing, Rhaenyra is staring at a painted map, and she's genuinely confused, because Tumbleton makes no military sense as a target. It's an open market town, no walls, no strategic high ground. Which means, Aemond didn't pick it for defense, he picked it as bait. If she sends her dragons to burn the Hightower army out of that town, she incinerates civilians who raised her own banners, and hands the Greens the exact propaganda they want, a mad queen burning her own people. If she doesn't, the occupation just sits there, unchallenged. Grand Maester Orwyle offers her a third option. Send Daemon's ground forces from the Riverlands instead of Dragonfire. Bloodier, slower, but survivable for the small folk. Mysaria backs the plan. Rhaenyra takes it and formally brings Orwyle into her small council, in the same breath. And remember last episode's theory about a political fall guy? It's confirmed here. Tessarion advises naming a master of coin, specifically so the public has someone to blame when they realize the treasury is empty. And Rhaenyra picks Sir Torrhen Manderly for the job. Exactly the man who smirked through the rat banquet and called out her hypocrisy in public. That wasn't forgotten. That was filed away. One more detail worth catching. While Rhaenyra meets with Alan of Hull, standing in for his father Corlys, who's furious enough over the legitimization refusal that he's left the capital entirely. Their conversation is interrupted by actual rats scurrying inside Viserys's old model of Valyria. That's not set dressing. That's the literal physical result of Aegon executing every rat catcher in the city, still crawling through the walls of power itself. Now to the storyline that's genuinely hard to watch and does more to humanize Aegon II than the entire show has managed until now. Aegon and Larys find Sunfire lying in a clearing, alive but reduced to a roadside attraction. Local scavengers are literally charging people a coin to touch him. Aegon limps over, rests his hand on his dragon, quietly says he's there, and pockets one of his golden scales before Larys drags him onward, insisting the beast is already dead. Here's why I don't buy that Sunfire is actually dead, and it's not just wishful thinking. Compare him directly to Mealy's corpse at Rook's Rest, visibly rotting, decayed, draped over the walls. Sunfire shows none of that. No decay. And Aegon insists he can still feel him, which matters in a world where the bond between dragon and rider is treated as something close to real, physical fact. Every visual clue on screen is telling you the opposite of what the characters are saying out loud. And then the show doubles down on how far this king has fallen. At the ruined camp of Rook's Rest, a local boss, also confusingly named Janos, no relation to anyone else in this story, puts the former king of Westeros on latrine duty. When he loses his temper over being denied food, he's forced at knife point to kneel and kiss a boot covered in mud and human waste. And to make it worse, Larys tells him the realm believes Aemond is the one who killed him. A king who's already presumed dead, being humiliated by a man who has no idea who he's talking to. That's not just a grim detour. That's the show stripping Aegon down to nothing before it decides whether to rebuild him. And make no mistake, Larys Strong is letting this humiliation happen on purpose. Larys doesn't want a strong, independent king. He wants a broken, traumatized shell of a man who owes his survival entirely to Larys's mind. It is psychological castration. By forcing Aegon to crawl in the mud and kiss a boot, Larys is ensuring that when Aegon eventually claws his way back to power, he will no longer have any capacity for mercy. This breakdown is exactly what shapes the unstable, merciless tyrant Aegon is destined to become in the final days of this war. Over at Harrenhal, Criston Cole and Gwaine Hightower arrive to find the castle abandoned, except for Alice Rivers. And she gives them the confirmed answer straight out. Aemond flew off on Vhagar the moment he learned King's Landing had fallen. Gwaine panics and wants to retreat to Tumbleton immediately. Criston refuses. He has nothing left to go home to as long as Rhaenyra holds the throne. So instead of retreating, he chooses to stay and wage a guerrilla campaign against Daemon's approaching river host, buying Ormond time at the cost of his own men's safety. The show is confirming the fact Aemond is gone, on his own, with the single largest dragon in the war. It is not confirming why yet. That's still open. But think about what it means strategically either way. The Green faction's single biggest weapon just took itself off the board, voluntarily, at the exact moment his own side needed him most. So where did Aemond go? He didn't flee out of fear. Aemond flew Vhagar straight into a calculated predatory trap. He knows King's Landing has fallen, and he knows staying isolated at Harrenhal makes him a target. He has gone rogue to hunt Rhaenyra's dragons one by one before they can unite against him. This tactical disappearance is going to paralyze the Black Council all week. Rhaenyra cannot move her forces safely as long as the shadow of the largest monster in the world is unaccounted for, lurking somewhere in the skies of Westeros, waiting to strike. Now for the storyline that's quietly the most dangerous secret in the entire Black Camp. Daemon flies to the Vale to shake loose military support from Jane Arryn. She refuses soldiers, calls him a beggar, but hands over 10,000 gold dragons. On the flight home, Caraxes goes off script entirely, landing near a hidden cave, and inside, Daemon finds his daughter Rhaena, hair shorn, living rough, having quietly tamed a sheep stealer. She's terrified to go back, because she knows exactly what she did. Her loss of control over that wild dragon during the gullet is what killed Jace. And here's where Daemon does something genuinely disturbing. To protect her, he kills an innocent shepherd, burns the body beyond recognition with Caraxes, and carries the severed head back to King's Landing as proof that Sheepstealer's rider is dead. He throws it on the council table along with the gold, gives Rhaenyra nothing but evasive answers about who it actually belonged to, and lets her grieve over a stranger's corpse, believing it's justice for her son. Mysaria isn't fooled. She corners Daemon afterward and asks him point blank whose head that really was. He doesn't answer her either. Hold on to that. The two people supposedly ruling this war side by side are now both lying to each other about the deaths of their own children in the same handful of days. That's not a subplot anymore. That's the marriage this entire war is quietly resting on. Two final reveals, and both of them detonate in the last stretch of the episode. First, while adjusting her daughter's gown, Alicent notices Helaena flinching, hiding her stomach. She's pregnant. Given the show's compressed in-universe timeline, realistically only 2 or 3 months since the start of this season, this can only be Aegon's child, conceived shortly before he was burned at Rook's Rest. Which means there's a new royal claimant coming, at the exact moment the Green faction's existing claimants are scattered, hiding, or presumed dead. Second, and this is the one that actually earns the episode's final line, back in Tumbleton, Aemond holds a public trial for the soldier who assaulted Cat, castrating him, which looks almost merciful. But behind the scenes, he has Cat's own brother executed in secret, and forces young Daeron to be the one who does it, telling the boy that hesitation makes him as weak as his late father. Daeron does it. Tessarion burns the evidence, and Aemond, wiping blood off a corpse, bows to the boy he's just turned into a killer, and says the words this episode is named after. Here's why that scene matters more than it looks. Cat doesn't know her brother is dead. From where she's standing, Aemond just delivered justice for her attack. If her husband, the Dragonseed Hugh Hammer, ever defects to the Greens later in this war, there's a real chance he does it while still believing Aemond protected his family, with no idea what actually happened behind that closed door. And Rhaenyra isn't helping her own case either. In this same episode, she puts Ulf White under house arrest for mouthing off in a tavern, and sends both Ulf and Hugh straight into Tumbleton on patrol duty, directly into the town where Hugh's own wife is being held. Add in gold cloaks violently cracking down on Queen of Bastards graffiti spreading through the city, and you've got two dragon seeds getting alienated by their own side, in the exact same episode where the other side is quietly, secretly earning one of their loyalty through a lie. So here's the actual shape of "And Now We Begin." A boy forced to kill to prove he's worthy of a crown built on hair color. A king reduced to kissing boots while his dragon waits, alive, for him to come back. A husband lying to his wife about their son's real killer. And a war that hasn't been decided by a single sword swing all episode, just by who's willing to lie the most convincingly. So tell me straight, out of everything we just covered, which lie do you think collapses first, and who's the one left standing in the wreckage when it does? If you want the full breakdown of exactly how Tumbleton became a trap in the first place, that video's linked right on your screen. Go watch that one next. This episode only makes it hit harder.